I don't know if there's a name for this psychological strategy, but the CIA and the billionaire class lean on it more than any other strategy. And basically, the way this psychological control works is they, if they want to banish from the face of the earth an idea, then what they do is they fill ranks with orbiters working for the Illuminati who redefine what the definition of that idea is. The function of Trumpism extensively is not to oppress minorities, it's not to take our rights. It is doing these things, but the real function of Trumpism is to banish from the face of the earth the definition of progressivism. And if you pay attention, you can see over this past 10 years of Trumpism, they have made the Democrats and Republicans now be reduced to these two social concepts. The first is Trumpism, which is authoritarianism, total slavery rule under billionaires, a feudal system fiefdom where everybody rents, and you just are beholden to white male billionaires, and your entire goal is to serve them better so that you get welfare from them. That's Trumpism. And then there's the Democrat side, and the Democrat side is basically liberal conservatism circa Reagan. And now they have made progressive positions be immigrants are our strength. They do the work Americans won't do. This is a conservative talking point from the past to skirt labor regulations and progressive regulations of labor, where they reframe we're basically importing desperate people and then abusing them, exploiting their poverty and their desperation to not give them progressive labor regulations. And the liberal conservative position is that's great. And they would use diversity and the melting pot of America and you work and the lie of upward mobility. So you start out, dying in a factory with no labor regulations, but your kids become lawyers, you know. And that was what the old liberal conservatives would say. And it was always a progressive attack. It was not liberal. And at the time, they had communists in society, a minority, and they had a lot of people with socialist opinions. And they would say, no, that's bullshit. I agree, immigrants are fine. But you are trying to normalize the role of an immigrant is to be exploited. You're framing that as a good thing. You are defying labor movement and you're gussying that pig up with we're helping immigrants and we're a melting pot. There's no point of embracing immigrants where it necessitates exploiting their poverty. That's some shit you added in as part of the lie of upward mobility of America. You start out getting beat by an overseer in a factory or a slaughter plant or a gardener and working under the table, kicking your body out of the way. And then your kids are lawyers and doctors. It's like, we could literally just not do that part. We could literally just welcome them as citizens and they're umbrellas under the same labor regulations as everybody else. Why are you mixing your desire to destroy the progressive labor movement with embracing immigrants and helping people? It's a mindfuck. You're not helping people. You're exploiting the desperate and saying because there's a chance their kids could enjoy American class, that it's a good thing when that part is completely optional. It doesn't have to happen. That's what real progressives would have said. Now 100% of Democrats will literally say what Reagan was saying. Like, we need to make it easier for immigrants to come here because my capitalist masters need to abuse them. And people who are broke and dying from Africa and Mexico will tolerate lack of progressive labor regulations. Isn't it wonderful how we're a big melting pot? That's how they would sell it then. The top layer is diversity is great. We got all these different people and cultures. The bottom layer is we're constantly undermining the progressive movement because people from countries that are desperate will tolerate us taking away progressive labor regulations the way at one time Italians and Polish did, who were starving as fuck in their countries. But now that you're born in America, you don't want to tolerate working in a slaughterhouse for 14-hour days with no protections if it chops off your arm, the machine to render the meat. But these people will because it's even worse where they're from. That was always a conservative attack on the labor movement, gussied up as diversity and embracing different people in the cultural melting pot, the land of opportunity. Like this gaslighting motherfucking mindfuck where it's like, that does not have to be part of being an immigrant. You're making it part of being an immigrant. Like we can completely welcome people from other countries and not take away their labor regulations and say that's a necessary step of becoming American. But that's what they did, and they did it as an attack on labor. At the same time, they were outsourcing everything to developing nations where they could just hide in secret and make their Nike shoes, killing people, right? This is now the Democrat progressive position. And where's the real progressive position? It no longer exists. Now, Reagan attitude towards immigrants, neocon attitude towards immigrants is the most liberal progressive view. And it's these two positions, let's hunt and kill and eat immigrants, and no, I'm Reagan. Let's abuse and exploit the fuck out of immigrants in the American dream. And even though they're being whipped by an overseer in a factory, their kids will have birthright citizenship and they can be lawyers. There's no progressive view at all. None whatsoever. They've redefined liberal conservatism as progressivism. And they hired nothing but flying monkeys to pull this off. And now what have they done? They've renamed what a progressive position is. And the real progressive view that works very well in other countries. Finland has the highest happiness of any country and the strongest social safety net and social democratic policies. And it's gone. It just doesn't exist in the world anymore. I can tell you more than anything else, this is what the CIA uses to control minds. They take an idea that they don't like because it threatens their billionaire slave masters, and they get flying monkeys who act like, I already mentioned how the CIA operates like narcissistic rich kids who want to be loved and special, but they've been brainwashed in a cult to seek that through this group. And they all have this flamboyant acting, needlessly theatrical demeanor. They talk so much, they ramble so much, they just enjoy lying and deception and putting on different hats and masks in a bid to feel special, while simultaneously being brainwashed. Your name is nothing, your glory is nothing, it's all the group. And they're very dysfunctional and unpleasant to be around, right? And they fill these people to gradually rename a new idea under the old idea they were scared of, and they use the same name for it. And this, more than anything, is how they erode our society over time. Absolutely is. And you can see examples of it everywhere, where over time, what it means to be a liberal progressive and what it means to be a conservative is just shifting in a way either side works for them. They are always shifting your expectations lower and lower and lower until they erase from the earth any shred of idea human life matters and shouldn't be exploited, until that's not even an idea anymore. A very effective way they avoid focus on wealth and the real parasite class, the billionaire class, is this the social war on the bottom. Everyone knows MAGA focusing on minorities who are immigrants and trans people and queers is the culture war. But what you don't know is they've infiltrated our educational institutions for a long time. These people have been masquerading as progressive when they aren't, and they've also been helping the culture war. They have created ideas like microaggressions, that the oppression of Black people is done through middle class whites moving to suburbia, and microaggressions. They're not openly calling you an N word and saying, get out of my town, but they don't want you there and they're racist. That this is really what your oppression is made of, and it's a lie. And again, they use that same strategy where they're taking like billionaire adjacent social ideas and they're packaging it in the label of liberal progressive, social progressive, even socialist. And these are ideas that have no place in real socialism, which is the unity of the people against the elite class, but they've slowly infiltrated society with it, brainwashing minorities of these ideas that your number one enemy is a middle class white. They hate you. They move to the suburbs to get away from you. They're hurting you and oppressing you through microaggressions. And you think to yourself, like, how can you believe that? It's as preposterous as what they sell white trash, that Somalis in Minnesota are your biggest problem. That out of 80,000 people, 96 of them had a fraud ring that the state busted. That's who's harming you. It is as preposterous and made of the same thing. Looking at powerless people who really don't have any power in society and attributing to them a magical power to hurt you. It's all done by the billionaire class. And the way they got away with this scam is the people they hired to do this, who are in the Illuminati and adjacent to the billionaires, is they call themselves progressive. And the lie that the educational system has been super left wing, it hasn't been. It's been full of nothing but CIA agents since the 60s. Okay. And these people that they put in positions to run like race studies or being awareness of oppression, invariably they teach the kids and the young adults. It's middle class whites moving to suburbs who don't like you and who are racist. That's really the problem. And it's not the problem. That is another version of the culture war. Even if those people suck and are like that, that's not why you're oppressed. You're oppressed because of this. Because after the Civil War, the industrial North and the Illuminati conspired to keep the slave owners in power, and you were dealing with not being able to get economic power since the 1800s. And that shit stopped in the 60s, and American blacks are way fucking behind from that. And never did the government step in to make it right, ever. And how would it be made right? By those billionaires in power, the ultra wealth in this society, who have profited from the injustice, did not pay for any shit to specifically uplift the people they oppressed. It did not happen because of immigrants from 1900 who were brainwashed themselves by capitalists and industry to be in the culture war and hate each other. It did not happen by middle class whites existing. It happened that way, by the elite class gaining wealth, never making it right. So poverty just self perpetuates into the future. But why is it that the majority of so-called liberal progressive college that Peter Thiel will stand up there and convince you is so far left, is so crazy and far left, is actually exactly what a billionaire would want minorities to think. Exactly what they'd want. Your enemy are white people with a little bit more than you. The way they go to the white trash, we're broke, and say, these Somalis are getting free cards and they get free food and everything handed to them. And then they crowd in the new factories and don't hire you. And you're poor because of them. It's literally the same exact justification. And nobody clocks it because these people saying this are lying to the people and that they are liberal and progressive. And they're willingly taking on the role of like, we're the hyper left liberal school, when literally every idea they're saying would help the billionaire class, right? So this is a strategy they've been using, and it's so fucking effective that the brainwashed can't see their. I can't tell my sister, you're so brain rotted from propaganda. Everything you think is a fucking lie. And there's no telling the minority communities brainwashed into this, like, white people moving to the suburbs is why you're oppressed. Microaggressions is why you're oppressed. You're oppressed because of white people who have a little bit more than you. There's no getting through to those people. Like, you've been fed this since you were born by the CIA. It makes no fucking sense. No fucking sense. It makes as little sense that your biggest problem is middle class whites as it would make for my sister that your biggest problem is a Somali crime ring of 90 people. That's a problem for you. Enough for you to focus your attention on it and overlook the big scams of your savior Trump, right? Another example of this is trying to get more and more minorities to think like how they already did white trash. If somebody who looks like you has power, you have power by association, right? That is another toxic idea that they've promoted in the fake left CIA controlled intelligentsia, the Ivy League schools. It's really a right wing billionaire adjacent talking point, but again, presenting this as the peak of progressivism. If a few people who are Black or Spanish get put into positions of power, then you, by definition, your whole community gains power. This is exactly the same perverted logic they've been using to oppress white trash until they're broke. You know that, right? That is literally what they're thinking. If white billionaires are in power, they're going to protect me. And look what they've done to them. But for some reason, For some reason, if you say DEI is not progressive, that method of solving this problem is right wing, and it's trying to make minorities think like white trash. If I see a black person with power, he's on my side. I don't have to worry. He's going to look out for my community. How well did that work for white trash? And again, they get away with this, and there's no voice saying that is not progressive. Progressive is not giving privilege to a handful of people with certain physical characteristics in a bid to trick the masses that those people having power helps you somehow. That's how they got white trash to a ditch. Make them believe this. If white men have power, I have power. Look how well that worked for white trash, but you can't tell minorities this because they're so brainwashed, just like white trash is brainwashed. They're all brainwashed by the CEA from birth. There's no making them understand. Like, DEI is a right wing policy, and the Democrats and progressives promoting it are traitors working for the CIA and billionaire class. They're trying to do you the way they do white trash already. Like, you don't expect more for yourself. You don't want programs that help the whole community. Your biggest issue is if corporations are making sure that a tiny percent of people who are probably the least oppressed of you with the most help and luck, which is why they're in a position to be hired by a corporation. Family were leaders in Haiti or Africa, or they were one of the very few black people in the South who were able to integrate into white society, and so they had some advantages. Those are the people who are going to get picked for that because it's not a program that really targets the oppressed. If anything, it's giving privilege to the least oppressed, who are most likely to join the system and keep it in place. But you're being trained that this is so important to you, and it helps you because you're leaning into the psychology they already did white trash into a ditch with. People who look like me have power, I get power. And that's just a completely fucking false conclusion, because how you look doesn't matter shit in your allegiances. And if you're an upper class member of America, your allegiance is to money and the billionaires, right? That's true if you're Eric Adams and black, or if you're white like Kid Rock and Hulk Hogan. It doesn't fucking matter. Their allegiance is to money and the billionaires, right? But you got Kid Rock dancing with an American flag shirt. I love white trash. And then you got like leaders who are black and they're completely fucking over the people like Eric Adams, right? There's no connection between how someone looks and whether or not they're going to help you, right? This is a lie based in racism and racial tribalism. And it doesn't become less so if it's presented as progressive. Like, oh, but it's different because black people were oppressed. So if we hire black people, then it is helpful. No, it's still not helpful. If anything, you're trying to cajole a community that was traditionally removed from the psychology because there were no black representatives at all allowed in the club. You're trying to cajole them into the same psychology that got white trash into a ditch, where they're like, as long as Trump has blonde hair, I don't give a fuck. Who's gonna help me? Like, all you're doing is applying a psychology they use to control white trash already to minority groups who are removed from that psychology being used as a tool because the racism was so extreme they didn't even have token representatives, right? But the idea, the entire logic behind it, that if somebody looks like you has power, you can rest assured they're going to help you, is a lie. And you can see how that worked for white people. They are so broken, so fucked, and so brainwashed, they can't get out of it. Again, ideas like this, they are now framing as the peak of progressivism, right? And this is the real trick. When you actually present real progressive ideas, they send their flying monkeys, caw, caw. They come from their Mount Doom, like billionaire orcs, and they say, that's Nazism. They've literally not only framed liberal conservative brainwashing as peak progressivism, but if you actually advocate for real progressive points, all focus on the culture war is to help the billionaire class. These things you're arguing for are not progressive. They're tricks. They will send their flying monkeys to hone in on you and say you're a Nazi. And they've actually relabeled what progressive are as Nazism in an amazing mindfuck. And let me tell you, it works so fucking well. So now what you have are the majority of people who are stupid. If they're white, they're focused on trans, queers, and a small Somali crime ring in Minnesota who truthfully was probably helped by the CIA to make some walls look bad. And on the other side, You have minorities who think their biggest problem is white people moving to the suburbs, middle class whites, white Karens throwing fits at Starbucks, which is, by the way, a figment of the imagination. This never happened, which just became this self perpetuating racist meme for minorities that white Karens abuse you at Starbucks. This became a thing. It's kind of like on the other side, they think Haitians are eating cats and dogs. It's just completely, it never happened. And the same way, there was no epidemic of white women like screaming at black Starbucks workers. But all the same, if you go online and look at videos, there's going to be a few featuring a white woman screaming at a black Starbucks worker. This is something they made up as like an epidemic in society that's not real. Just like they made up the Haitians are kidnapping cats and dogs to eat them, and that's not real. So they're worried about that. Um, they're worried about, like I said, microaggressions, that hidden suppressed biases that are secretive are why you're oppressed. And the only progressive idea you can envision is that somebody who looks like you gets power in the way white people have people who look like them with power. And then you think you'll be more like they've managed to make minorities think white Americans are so rich and doing so well. And they got there through racial tribalism and identifying with leaders who look like them. And so now they want to do the same thing, not realizing that set of mentation that you are trying to copy is how they made white trash broke. White people are not rich. Most white trash who do the things you're talking about are broke, and it was always created to make them broke. But they've lied to groups of minorities that this is how white people get ahead by having leaders who look like them, and that's going to make them rich somehow. And being clannish and tribal and excluding everybody. And this has never been the case. The people with the most wealth in America are immigrants who had skills. That's if you look at the most well outside of the billionaire class and the parasites, it's people who have skills. That's how you get wealth in America as a middle class person by having a set of labor that's valuable in the market. I mean, people born into Satanist bloodlines excluded. Racial tribalism was never how white people got rich. It was how they got broke, right? But again, they've kind of like using these fake progressive voices, they've convinced them that that's how white people got ahead. And then they lean into, well, now we're going to win doing this. And it's like you're actually going to get more broke because it was always a trick from wealthy people to make them broke and not give them shit, right? Like, oh, if my leader looks like me, I benefit somehow. It's like, not really. Yeah, not really. Um, and again, it doesn't do anything to address injustice because invariably the people who are going to be taking advantage of these positions are the ones closest to the system of oppression. It's going to be people like Haitian ruling families, African ruling families who have always been working with the West to oppress their people, and African Americans in the South who were light and able to blend it and help the oppression. It's going to be people like that. um, Dwight Eisenhower comes to mind. They're taking advantage of these things. And because it does not do anything to target what's really done and fix it, so that naturally there would be a proportionate pool of black candidates. And there's no getting through this decades of brainwashing because they're brainwashing every group in America to punch each other, to look at false targets, and look at them as the saviors. And yeah, I don't know what the name of this trick is, but they basically introduce a right-wing billionaire friendly idea and they call it liberal progressive. And then they make the other side, who's supposed to be the not liberal side, like cartoonish villains. So now anything is better than that, and they can label all degenerate, like illiberal capitalist ideas as progressive because it's not the boogeyman eating immigrant side. And more than anything, that's why they introduced Trumpism to put the final, after the USSR fell, after communism was dead, they said, we're going to make Trump to finally, and once and for all, put in the trash can any idea of liberal progressivism, which we only invented as a compromise away from socialism, communism after the Depression. There's no socialism, there's communism. So, what better way to wipe it off the face of the earth than make a boogeyman who's just a cartoon bad guy? And all the good liberal progressives from the from Virginia and the CIA are all saying Reagan ideas, and this is now peak progressivism. That token hires is all you need. You don't need any programs. You don't need money, you moocher. That exploiting immigrants is our strength. That anyone who says this is not true is a Nazi. And where did liberal progressivism go? In the fucking trash can. Lost in history. And now it's Reagan neocon views against whatever the fuck MAGA is, a cartoon boogeyman pretending to help white people or something. Yeah, this strategy is their bread and butter. You can stop the threat of an idea if you take the label it previously masqueraded as and redefine it and mutilate it until the idea is gone and it has no label now. And they use this to their advantage for decades. And even the fraud, like the Ivy Leagues and the schools are so far left, but then you look at the ideas that are disseminating, they help the billionaire class, and these people are all in the Illuminati, right? This is why it's hopeless. You can't fight for an idea. You were brainwashed, never existed at all.